The new Wake of Water update just released for Enshrouded, adding an entirely new biome filled with dynamic water physics, underwater exploration, and even more creative base building tools, as well as a bunch of gameplay mechanic improvements like scaling item durability, recraftable iconic weapons, a higher level cap increase, and much more, which I'll be covering in a later portion of the video. But it's been almost 2 years since the game first came out, and the game's come a long way since. So if you've missed out on one of Steam's most highly rated survival RPGs with over 40,000 very positive reviews on Steam, here's what you can expect from Enshrouded. You create your own character, which is known as a Flameborn, the last ember of hope in a world slowly being consumed by a deadly mist known as the Shroud. You can explore these massive handcrafted regions with puzzle towers, underground dungeons, powerful bosses to hunt down, unique armor and weapons to collect, and you can also skill your character to either specialize or make a hybrid mage, warrior, beastmaster, dual-wielding assassin, or ranger, and then embark on a bunch of different quest lines scattered all over the world. You can also, if you want, rebuild civilization with the super customizable voxel-based building system, where you can terraform the environment, and then with the aid of rescued NPCs, you can craft your way through one of the most satisfying progression systems I've ever played. Now, since launch, the devs have added several new biomes, more enemy variety, and systems into the game, as well as a huge balancing patch, which I'll talk about later on in the video. But first, I just got my hands on the new Wake of the Waters update, and Keen Games have sponsored me to tell you all about it. And if you like what you see, you can access the game for yourself from the link below. And if you own the base game already, this update's free, just like all of the other updates, so just jump back in and try it out for yourself. And the first thing I want to talk about is just how insane the new water physics system is. So I found this ancient Aztec temple, which was controlled by the new lizard alligator people, and after an embarrassing amount of time, I figured out that I needed to swim underwater to enter inside the temple. Then I came across the easiest legendary treasure I've ever seen. Unfortunately for me though, there was a pressure plate which resulted in my instantaneous death. So you might think that attempt number 2 would go much better, but it was actually worse. I made it back into the temple to get to the untouched treasure hoard. I was about to loot the new legendary weapon, only to find that there was only bones in the treasure chest. Then the room starts to fill up with water all around me, and the water's coming in fast. So in my panic, I looted the chest again to see if it would turn off the water. That didn't work. So at this point, I start frantically looking around for something to press or activate. And as the water fills up, I see 3 buttons that I need to activate to open this next doorway. And after searching around, I found these underwater passages that you have to swim through, and you have a limited time limit underwater. You can use your stamina to swim faster, and there's also a few pieces of equipment that you can use to increase the amount of time you can go underwater, but I had none of those. So here I am, almost dying as I swim to this button and activate it, and then I have to swim all the way back, take a breath in the room that is progressively filling up with water, getting deeper and deeper, and then dive down again and try and reach the next button to activate. So finally I reach this last button, and thank goodness, because if you do run out of oxygen, the game starts taking away your health instead of just killing you, which gave me just enough time to get out of this water-filling tomb. And honestly, this whole Indiana Jones-like dungeoneering experience is one of the coolest things I've experienced in gaming for a long time, because I just didn't expect this to happen. And to be honest, I'm not so sure if I love or hate the developers for doing this to me. But apart from trying to kill you, the new water physics does indeed have practical purposes as well. You can actually use it to irrigate crops and create waterways to control the water's flow. Like here in this village I found, you can use their huge reservoir of water at the top here, and if we activate the wooden dam blocking the water, which you can toggle up and down, you'll then start the flow of the water down into the system. You can even see that the water turns the giant wheel as it flows over it, and then it starts filling up the next canal below. exactly as you'd expect, but seeing this in a video game is just really cool to me because it shows how realistic this physics system is. And if you go down, you can open the next gate that will then irrigate all of your crops and water them for you. And you can also mess with the system by digging channels so that the water flows through it naturally. But of course, I wanted to see what would happen if we just flooded the entire village. So I started mining a hole in the dam, and sure enough, the water starts slowly erupting from all of the leaks and holes I've made. Slowly at first until I made the hole even bigger, and then the water just starts gushing out into the houses below, eventually filling all of the different streams and avenues as it goes. The Wake of Waters update also adds an entirely new biome to the game. And if you haven't played in a while, you may have noticed that the map got a lot bigger with several new biomes being added. But specifically, the Wake of Waters biome is located just here on the map, and I've only discovered a small part of it so far, including the Veilwind Spire, which is a nightmare to get to the top of. But this is probably the most diverse biome Keen Games have created yet. Let me explain. Not only does it have a stunningly beautiful world to travel through with all the bamboo forest canes, the thick leafy foliage along the ground, towering mountains, and huge lakes that stretch on forever. But the area is also covered with the ancient Aztec-like temple ruins that have Indiana Jones style dungeons with traps, puzzles, and treasures to find, and of course, new boss enemies to kill. But you can also find some tucked away tribal bamboo crafted villages of the new lizard race, which wield spears and can swim and attack you even in the water. And currently you can't actually attack while you're swimming, so you do need to be careful that you don't get chomped. You'll find that electric damage can be really effective against them, especially when they're already wet from swimming in the water. You'll also find and discover abandoned pirate-themed settlements and strongholds to explore as well. What you see above land is only part of some of the secrets you're going to discover by swimming below. And obviously even more lore and storyline, which I don't want to spoil for you guys. I was actually really surprised at just the amount of architectural variety this new biome adds to the game. And obviously that means a bunch of new building tools have also been added. So here's a few tips for creating an underwater secret base. Firstly, if you put down an altar in a lake, you now have an option to activate it and just click remove water. This will literally remove all of the water around the buildable area. And that's also a great way to access the hidden materials below the water that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to mine. Now the water will slowly return back to its original position over time, but if you do want it to return back instantly, you can just remove your altar to fill the gaping hole you created in the lake. Now to build an underwater base, you need to put down a flame altar on land and then remove the water around it. And then you can then chain together multiple flame altars to keep removing the water and essentially create a deeper parting of water that you can then build in. And using this method, you can go as deep as you like and literally create your own Atlantis underwater. And as you build your underwater base, you're going to want to make sure it's actually completely tight, otherwise the water will just flood back into the space. I've built this one with a tunnel entrance in the top so you can easily get inside. And you'll probably end up with some water left inside the building as you're crafting it. But to get rid of it, there's actually a new water hoover tool that sucks it up and then you can just teleport back outside and spit it out somewhere. Or you can just build and place the new drain tool, which will slowly drain all the water from the room. Obviously, there's also been a bunch of new building blocks added to the game, and some of my favorite are the bamboo and the ladders. And with these, I've crafted a mountainside home that blends seamlessly into the environment on the cliff here. I also built a ladder to scale the cliff face, and I created a little diving board off the bottom here because you can now dive into the water below by pressing C as you jump. There's even a new underwater harpoon that's been added to the game, which makes it much quicker to get around instead of just swimming underwater. Then there's the dark temple blocks, which have unique Aztec iconography and spiky metal edges with unique looking windows. I created a little water temple here in the lake with them, but the coolest thing is that you can actually also use water spouts, which is another new thing added to the game. You basically just put them anywhere you want them, and then it's an unlimited source of water that flows from them. So now you can see it's flooding down the temple stairs towards the entrance. Or you can put them in the ceiling to create curtains of water that you walk through in your home. Enshrouded's also added fishing into the game, so you can use several bugs that you find around the environment as fishing bait and then craft yourself a rod before heading out to the lake and casting out. The fishers will try and bait you to hook into early, but you need to have patience. And then once you see the prompt pop up, you can reel them. And then there's an entire mini game over trying to keep the fish steady as you catch it. And there's lots of fish to catch and mount on your wall as you play. The Wake of Waters update also added a bunch of new quality of life improvements, starting out with the weapon and gear balancing rework. So the developers basically went back through every single weapon in the game and checked whether the stats actually matched what the weapon looks like and felt like. So a good example they gave was the ice-coated daggers. Before they only did pierce and cut damage, but now they're going to deal ice damage and give an extra ice bonus when you upgrade them. And yes, the weapon upgrading was also added in a previous patch, so you can now upgrade all those cool weapons that you love so much as you play the game. Another thing that probably annoyed you in the past was durability scaling. So they've also tweaked durability, making it much higher overall. And it also scales with both item level and rarity. So as enemies get harder to kill, your weapon won't break as quickly. This means that as you progress, your gear becomes more resilient, and your legendary sword won't crumble after just a few fights anymore. But this only applies to the new gear that you find or craft after the new update comes out, just so you know. Also, they've added craftable unique weapons. So remember the light emitting wailing blade that you can get like right at the very start of the game? It looks awesome, but then you kind of outlevel it very quickly, which means you never end up using it again. But now you can actually craft updated versions of any of these unique iconic weapons you come across. That means every weapon in the game is now usable, even in the late game. Also, there's new weapon drops and there's a big exploit fix. So let me explain. Since launch, there's been an exploit, which I've made videos about, where you could just save and reload to respawn a rare chest, which drops randomized gear. And you could do this over and over to basically farm the legendary loot chests until you got the best gear or weapons from that specific area. But this is now finally being patched out, which I overall think is a good thing, because I would spend hours farming a loot chest instead of actually having fun playing the game. And these chests will still respawn, but over a longer period of gameplay, not each time you reload the game. But if you're a bit sad by this, don't worry, because there is now a new method of getting loot. The developers added new enemy weapon drops, and enemies in general now just drop weapons more commonly. And the weapon drops also scale with the enemy's level, and they can roll anywhere between common to legendary. So exploring high-level regions and actually killing those enemies is once again rewarding. And if you are just trying to get back into the game, maybe you want to play a mage, well, they have now finally added a low-level mage spell, which allows you to play a mage much earlier on. Another big change, which I think is overall positive, was the change to health, stamina, and mana regeneration. It was actually pretty easy to run away just mid-fight and regenerate your health passively, and this made fights pretty risk-free. But now this has been nerfed, so you'll now need to prepare for fights by cooking meals, crafting potions, and managing your resources better in combat. But some of the armor and weapons did get a huge buff to their regeneration, so you can still have that playstyle, but you kind of have to sacrifice something to get it now. But if you want to check out some uncut gameplay, I will link the live stream down below in the description, or you can just jump in right away for yourself from the other link below.